pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I think I've had to say this in the past, but I'd like the record to reflect that although I was wearing a very similar suit last night, this is in fact a different suit. They're just two different shades of gray. Let's get started tonight with public comment.
Hi, Baron Gemmer, South Wayne Avenue. If I could get the overhead, that would be great.
Ian, if you're able to hear us, if you could turn on the overhead for Baron. Yeah. Thank you.
What I'm going to do, in looking at the plans when they're online, and thanks to Amanda for all the great work, and also for the links to the interactive maps, because those were very, very useful, particularly the blockish ones don't do it justice to it. In looking at them, I think, particularly from Ward 3, but also from a lot of the other wards, my opinion is A and B have some issues, whereas C is fairly close in terms of the boundaries. I did look at C, though, because there were some existing boundaries from both the last redistricting and I think some remnants from even before that that really were done for reasons other than trying to use arterials and things. So I have some suggested tweaks to that if I could show those. Just a level set. This is option C, so you can just see from a blockish standpoint. I won't believe Ward 5 changes at all. Ward 6, I'm going to talk about this little finger here, as well as this is really not a problem. Most of those are 0 census blocks when you take a look. And then there's area here that's near the blue route for Ward 3 that I'll talk about in a second. This is a printout from the interactive maps where you can zoom in and see the streets a lot better and understand what's underneath it to what you're getting at. So this is, hold it straight here. This is Lancaster here and Conestoga. So this little triangle is still on the other side of Lancaster, and as well as this finger, which is like West Wayne and between Conestoga and Lancaster there. This neighborhood here, this is like Bloomingdale, actually Bloomingdale split up there, and then like Lenore and some other streets. That's kind of a neighborhood unto itself. I actually lived near there for 9 years and another year more recently. So one of the things you'll see is me trying to put that back in Ward 3 to be part of the neighborhood that it is with the arterials. Secondly, down here, you can see there's a good portion of Ward 3 that used to be on the east of the Blue Route, and now there's only a small portion. And when I was canvassing those people, they kind of feel isolated as it is. So to me, this is problematic where you have an even smaller number of people in the gray right there that are divided by the blue route from the rest of the folks that would be over here now, because even some of their immediate neighbors now are a part of Ward 4, which would have made sense, I think, from the beginning. And then up here, this is Eastern up here, but there's a couple neighborhoods on either side of it, right there and right there. And the only reason I point those out is because those are kind of needed to be given back to Ward 1 in order to even the numbers up within the variances that are allowed, the plus or minus 237. So this is a really badly marked up version of that, but showing you that this is 3. And so this is, those I would propose to go to 3 so that it's truly bounded by Lancaster and Conestoga and that these neighborhoods are joined back to the neighborhoods that they belong to. This goes to 4 from 3 because it's on the eastern side of the blue route, and then it becomes a part of the neighborhoods that are already there. And then these, with Eastern in the middle, these are the neighborhoods that surround it, which rightfully so can still go to 1 without causing any trouble, but they needed to be put back because of number 1 losing quite a bit in that little triangle right there. Actually, I might leave that up just to show you real quick. And I ran the numbers for all these. So this is the triangle that comes from Ward 1, and this is the West Wayne little sliver between Conestoga and Lancaster that belongs to Ward 6 right now. And the numbers there, 328 and 254, that would be transferred from those wards to Ward 3. I'm sorry I don't have copies. I'm happy to give these to you later on. This is, whoops, this is the area south of the, or east of the Blue Route, where this whole thing used to be a part of Ward 3, which was problematic to begin with. Now it's just this small section with these folks who are even more isolated and really should be a part of this neighborhood and this neighborhood. And that would be 54 that would move from Ward 3 to Ward 4. This is west of East, here's Eastern right here. You can tell by the 710. This is a neighborhood with, I think it's Fenimore's there, and then Fenimore Road, and then Fairview right there. Those would be given from Ward 3 to Ward 1, and because the Ward 1 has all those neighborhoods around it anyway. And then last, this is on the other side of Eastern. There you see the 710. These are parts of Ward 3 that would also be given to Ward 1. Again, the neighborhoods that are surround it, and this is Ward 1 all around it. As a reminder, there's what we're talking about. Ward 1's right above it. And sorry for the small print, but this is, and I actually do have copies. I can give you this. Matter of fact, let me do that real quick for you guys at least, and then I'll read them off.
Thank you.
So what
do you have
this-
an extra one that you could give to Amanda?
I'm sorry? Oh, I'm sorry, yes, and I did create one for me.
Thank you. Because my opinion on this is worth absolutely
Yes.
nothing.
Thank you for that, Jack. I apologize for not doing that right away. What this is this is for each of the 7 wards. This is the original count within the wards for option C. This is the variance from, again, the original option C, and again, it has to be plus or minus 237. And then this is the variance based upon these changes you see here. So you can see it's still within the plus or minus 237, those of you in the audience that have great sight and those of you with a copy. And basically what it did, it took those changes I did, the triangle that was south of 30 that was a part of Ward 1, the West Wayne finger, which I called it, which is a part of Ward 6, and then giving up the east of 76 to Ward 4, giving up west of Eastern, again, from a Ward 3 perspective, back to Ward 1, and giving up east of Eastern back to Ward 1. And that keeps us with compliance with the variances and gives us a better breakdown with the arterials as well as with the neighborhoods. A lot of this was specifically for the first ones I mentioned. Knowing these personally and knowing these from talking to the residents, and then I spoke with Maggie about these because I thought she had a better insight on those in order to make sure those were good to give back.
Yep, Baron, part of the Ward 6 changes that you're proposing, would one of those streets be West Wayne?
Yeah, right.
Over by the library?
Yeah, yes, this, actually, let me see if I can do this.
So, I mean, do you have any concerns there of chopping a street in half, like giving half of West Wayne to Ward 3 and half of it to Ward 6?
No, because it crosses Conestoga. I mean, this is Conestoga right here.
Yeah, no, I know.
Yeah, and I knowing these neighborhoods with Lenore, again, because I basically lived right there, and it really chops it up right now. I actually have the past 2 ward maps too, but, I mean, Lenore to Bloomingdale all the way to Conestoga and then to Lansdowne, that's a neighborhood. People walk up and down there to West Wayne up to, where Kaz's development is, all the way, to Conestoga. That's, from my remembrance of being there 9 years plus another year, about 5 years ago, that's all kind of one contiguous folks. And particularly with being in Ward 1, because I think they do, just like the folks down here across the Blue Route, they kind of feel out of the loop with the rest of the folks in Ward 1 who are on the other side of Lancaster. And Jake, I know we talked about also the fact that the one voting precinct is the library there, and whether that could still remain, although albeit not in Ward 6, or perhaps using Wayne Elementary for one or both of the precincts.
Right. Yeah, no, I appreciate all the work you did on this. I mean, obviously, you spent quite a bit of time. And I think a lot of it makes sense.
Okay.
Thank you.
I will sit down. Thank you. So my vote for C modified.
C plus.
Yeah, C plus.
Do we have any additional public comment?
Oh, good evening. My name is Jillian Norris Santo. My address is 424 Inverary Road in Villanova. I'm president of the League of Women Voters of Radnor Township. I'm not really going to talk about the different maps. Many of us, many of us do see the advantages of map number C, but I'm not going to go into detail about that. I think you've had letters, communications pointing out the advantages from Roberta Winters, our past president, who's done a real analysis of it, and then, of course, additional analysis this evening. But I want to get on to something a little bit different. One of our most important positions and principles is ensuring convenient, secure voter access to the polls at each election. Convenient access requires reachable, accessible polling locations and the expectation that voters will not face an unduly long time waiting in line. We realize that your subcommittee does not draw precinct lines or determine polling locations. However, we believe that once a ward map is adopted by the Board of Commissioners and approved by the county, whichever map it is and whatever tweaks are made, we urge the Board of Commissioners to work with all those concerned to draw new precinct lines when necessary, to analyze all existing polling locations, and to change or add locations as needed. And we believe the goal must be to ensure convenient access to all of the township's voters, including those walking or using public transportation. For example, people living a long distance from the township building, whatever ward that might be, should not really be asked to go over to the township building. When some closer poll might very well be identified. And that's the essence of our comments. And well, we look forward to whatever map you choose. And as I said, the next step will be the precincts, and really we believe a thorough analysis of, it's a chance to start over perhaps. Not all the polls will change, of course, but a chance to look at them all. That's our message at the moment. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Is there any additional public comment?
Hello, everyone. My name is Hallie Ammons. I am the Assistant Director for Community and Government Relations at Villanova University. First, thank you so much for considering the input from the Villanova community throughout this process. I just wanted to make some final comments before the board continues with their evaluation. And you received an email from me with my feedback, with our feedback on the maps. We just had an election, obviously, general election, and we saw a really strong turnout at Villanova among students. It was a really positive experience. It was really positive to see the amount of interest and engagement there was among the student body on election day, particularly for a midterm election. We ran shuttles from campus to help folks get to where they needed to go. But on election day, we really got to see in action the challenges and the obstacles that are in front of our students when it comes to voting and registering. The students have to go to 4 different polling places. None of them are in easy walking or biking distance. 3 of which really require a car, some sort of vehicle to get to. Many of the students prior to Election Day had issues with their voter registration forms. And to their credit, many of them, when they received follow-up from the county, were able to resolve some of those issues or were able to resolve them on Election Day. But I imagine there were many students who were not able to resolve those issues and weren't able to vote. Because of the way the forms need to be filled out, they didn't put their dorm name or they omitted some information that bounced their registration back because of the way that the lines are drawn. So we saw all of that in practice. But that said, there was a lot of energy, a lot of interest, and a really great effort put forward by the students to get out and get engaged. We've talked about throughout this process that Villanova is a community of interest, and because of that, we have been advocating for Villanova to be consolidated into one ward, Villanova and its surrounding neighborhoods. And in a consolidation like that, Villanova would be able to host a polling place on its campus for not only the Villanova campus community, but the surrounding neighborhoods that are a part of it, making that access to voting equitable and easy and in close proximity for the folks who are in that community. In terms of the maps that were presented, our preference is for option C, but I do have one note to include the former Sovereign Bank building, which is now Riley Hall and Aldwin 2, and the Aldwin Triangle, which is bordered by South Ithan Avenue, Aldwin Lane, and the Villanova Station on the Norristown High-Speed Line. These are the only parts of campus, and none of them house residents that would fall into a third ward. So if they could be grouped into Ward 2, that would be ideal on that map. But ultimately, you know, a consolidation for Villanova would mean equitable access to voting for our campus population. It would mean more students who are residents of Radnor Township who are able to participate in the voting process. And I know it would be well received by that population. Thank you.
Thank you. Any additional comment? Seeing none, Amanda, you are up. You have presented these maps to us a couple of times already. So frankly, if you have nothing new to add, it would not be in any way shocking or odd. But I also don't want to step on you and tell you that you're not permitted to. So maybe you could come up, tell us if you've got anything, and if not, we can just kind of launch into questions, sort of open it up to the floor, both commissioners and the general public, and then go from there.
I really don't have anything to add. I kind of talked and shared everything, so I'm looking forward to hearing the feedback that's offered tonight and what you all have to add and making the adjustments you're proposing. Or
were you able to, on the fly and off the top of your head without a computer in front of you, evaluate the proposals that Barron made? I laugh because I think that my request is a little crazy, not because I think Barron's proposals are crazy.
I think what is being proposed would work. I mean, this is on the fly, so, you know, I'd want to look at it a little more closely, but if I followed along with what all he was saying and what I'm looking at here, I think it would be doable.
Okay.
Yes.
Excellent. Then let me start by opening it up to the Board of Commissioners. If you guys have questions, either for Amanda or for the group, or you just want to sort of tell us what your thoughts are, that would be great. Dr. Myers, why don't you go first?
Okay. I was actually leaning toward B myself, though initially I thought A, so sorry all you C people, because A does seem to have the fewest changes for the people within the wards. moves the fewest people between wards. I think both B and C do a pretty good job with Villanova. I don't like that, I don't know how to describe it, the dink area in B so much. I am inherently prejudiced against C because it'll district me out of my ward. It's hard, just to be honest, it's a little hard for me to look at it somewhat rationally. But that's the way it would go, and, you know, that's that. Otherwise, I don't have any specifics. I did a little moving around, sort of akin to what Barron did. He did it much better than I as far as finding good solutions to some of the areas that I did think were like Little Probosci or that funny area on the B map. And I think we could probably, working with Amanda, smooth some of that out. But I do have to agree that C seems to be the most blockish of the maps. And probably, though I didn't add and compare between B and C, the most change in ward citizenship between one ward and another. You know, ideally, it would be nice to have Villanova be one ward, but you realize the population of Villanova is bigger than a ward, so I don't think that'll work for us. I guess that's it.
And yeah, Dr. Myers, I didn't realize that that C had that impact on you personally. So you know, I'm not sure if I want to rethink my views of the maps. Okay. Yeah. So, but you know, I do think the blockish views of C on first glance and review was my number one preference. I do agree with some of Barron's comments on the little tangents that jut out, particularly in the 6th Ward. I think he's made strong points that those are better fits in other neighborhoods because they have common issues. So I think some tinkering on C, but I do like C because of the blockish makeup, and that I think it does a better job of keeping neighborhoods together and having common issues amongst the voters. A question I do have for Amanda, if you could just run through the 3 options as it relates to Villanova. So A, B, and C, how are they broken up? So C has Villanova in 2 wards?
Yes. Well, so yes, I would say yes, but as Villanova pointed out, in option C, technically speaking, there are a few areas that are not student housing that are still not contained in there. There was one, I didn't quite follow all of the places, but there's one place, the way they changed the census block between last time and this time did not keep Villanova all within the same census block, so it's connected to one that, let me see if I have a picture of it. Oh wait, that was on a separate paper, I think. It was connected to a census block that didn't stay, like it extends differently. I'm trying to think where I have that paper.
So it sounds like the majority of students are in 2 and 7, but then
yeah,
there's-
so
but then
mainly
there's a
they
few-
are in 2 and 7, but
there's a
there
few in
is this
4?
small section. I don't think I have it with me here, but there was, you can kind of see it on here, but not really. Over here, sorry, over here, oh, where's the stick? Let me get the stick. Okay. An arm extender. Right over here, there's like a little piece that's a part of Villanova, but the census block extends like all the way along 476. It's connected to a census block that goes all the way out. You know, maybe it would show you on this the census block map. Oh yeah, here. This one. I knew I had it somewhere. Okay. There we go. So this little piece up here includes part of Villanova, but it's connected to a census block that goes all the way over here. So if you choose to keep Villanova here, you're bringing over a bunch of other people as well that separates Villanova. And that was the only piece of Villanova I saw that wasn't a part of it, but there may be another part I missed because I'm not, fully familiar with all of the campus areas as I was looking at the map.
And you're not able to move the Villanova students without moving everyone else in that block?
That one doesn't contain any students. The pieces that are not in, so let me back up again. So in option C, the students are in 2 wards.
Okay.
But Villanova campus is not in
Got
2
it.
wards, if that
Got
makes
it.
sense.
Yep.
They're small little pieces, and they spoke more eloquently about what those were than I will be able to. But there were small pieces that were not. The one I was aware of because of a voting block anomaly.
I understand. I
Okay,
understood
yep.
now. I
Sorry.
was thinking there
So
were 2
yes.
students there.
Yep, and all of them, let me think. So, let
And
me
then option
refresh.
A and B.
Then in option A and B, in option, so in option B, I believe, and they had to confirm this with Villanova, but I don't think that this little block here contains students. If you remember last time I was here, I talked about how when they counted people, they didn't necessarily count them where they actually lived at Villanova. So the block that contains like over 1,000 people actually doesn't have any students living there. And the block that has 9 people has all the students living there. I don't know if you recall that at all. So I had just said last time I would defer to Villanova to confirm this or not, but it was my impression that there is no students that live there. So even in option B, the students are still in 2 districts. But that might not be accurate. Okay, there's 1 dorm. There you go.
Okay, so
Like I said, I wasn't sure, so thank you.
so actually in option B, they would be in
3,
3
yes.
wards? Okay.
That's what they're saying, yes.
Okay, and then option A?
Option A, they're definitely, I believe, in 3, if I remember right. Yes. And in option A, they're in 3.
Okay. And so another reason why I would lean toward option C is, from the beginning, one of the criteria I had personally was to try to get Villanova down to 2 wards. And, I think it worked out well. I believe they should be located in wards 2 and 7, where a lot of the buildings are, where a lot of the issues occur. So if the students are voting, they should be voting for the commissioner who represents, those issues, or has, it's one of his or her main focuses are those issues, and not a commissioner who doesn't have the buildings or the university in the ward, if that makes sense. So
Yeah.
I like the way that they're broken up into wards 2 and 7.
Can I ask a quick question? In that little gray block, sorry to be so
Yeah, that's
figurative,
okay.
that has 1 dormitory, how many people are in that census block?
That
I
was,
looked it up before, but
that's
I've
okay.
gone over it so many
No,
times,
I know,
I'm
it's
confused.
hard. What I have down is there's 1,289 people
In
at
that
1 block. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And they don't have it
Thought that was a
divided.
big
I'm
one.
not sure where the student housing is within that block, but it's all one
But it's a
piece.
block.
It's a block, yeah.
Right.
They didn't separate it out at all. So that's what the count is according to the census. That's not necessarily the number of students that actually reside there.
But we have to stay within census blocks,
Yes.
so it doesn't really matter.
Yes.
I mean, we have
But
to
if you're
say
thinking about
that,
practical impacts of it, then the number of students who'd be separated out would not be that quantity, is what I'm saying. I'm guessing. I don't think there are that many students in
Any
there.
idea how many students might be in that? Not more than 100. That's interesting.
So not necessarily insignificant.
And
I
it's
mean,
always
every
hard
person
because you could
matters.
flip that block if it were just 100 people and basically have everybody in the same wards, but it's going to appear as if you're flipping it over 1,000 people. And that makes it hard.
Yep.
And so not related to the maps, but a comment made by the chair of the League of Women Voters. I know it's not part of the scope of this subcommittee to recommend precinct lines, but I've also had discussions, and I was told that while the county will draw the precinct lines, they would take our suggestions because we have a better sense of the communities and the neighborhoods. So I think after the maps are complete, I think it would be a good exercise to also make recommendations on precinct lines and send those recommendations along with the map to the county.
Yeah, I actually heard, true or not, that we were the only township that did not, or the only group that did not draw precinct lines in the county, so. We'll recommend.
I will say, well, first let me make sure that I understand. Is it true that for both options B and C, there is a switch that we can flip whereby we put all of the Villanova students into 2 wards, but in doing so, we would, on paper, create 1 ward that was significantly larger than the others, but in reality, it would in fact be proportional because the paper version is based on a census error. Am I getting that right?
No. So option C already has the students just in 2 wards.
Got it.
No switch. You're thinking of the little piece I talked about that
Correct.
has students, but you can't just flip the whole, like in option B, you can't just like move 1,289 people easily. That's what makes the difference between, one of the big differences between option B and C is that in order to move that quantity of people into either Ward 7 or Ward 2, you have to take away a significant portion of somewhere else to make that happen.
And are they, looking for a non-weird way to say this, but are the people that we're talking about here real people, or are they the result of a census error? Is there a census error that we can take advantage of in option B, basically?
I don't think so. I mean, I'm trying to see if I have like a picture of it here, but you're thinking of this little tiny piece here, which is where most of the students live. So there's like that little purple piece that sticks up.
Yep.
That has 9 people in it according to the census, but in fact, quite a few students live there. So in that sense, you could take that little piece and choose to put it in Ward 2 or put it in Ward 7, and that's the piece that wouldn't make a difference from like a numbers perspective for your official count, but it would impact a lot of students as far as which ward they were voting in. But this other piece that, according to the census, has a lot of people in it, and in fact only has maybe like 100 students in it, that is a significant, from a census perspective, a significant number of people to move, and you can't just easily shift that many people.
If we were to say, look, the census says there's over 1,000 people there, but in reality, we're aware that there's only 100, would it not make sense for us to say we're going to move that into Ward 7 or Ward 2? We're aware that on paper it's going to look like we've got a lot more people in Ward 2 than we should, but in reality, we're aware that that's a census miscount.
Well, you would still have, because you're going to have all the students there, so it wouldn't necessarily be a census miscount. The census miscount is between these 2 little pieces here, because the population's more switched between those 2. So you can't have an end product that the census count, regardless of whether it's an anomaly or how accurate or inaccurate it is. This is the official census count, and it has to stay within that 10%, plus or minus 5, if you will, margin. And by moving this little area here into Ward 2 or 7, you're not going to be within that margin on the official census count.
So wait a second, if the census said that Ward 1 only had one person in it and I'm it, then I'm allowed to go out and cannibalize everybody else's wards because it's a greater Ward 1 and I'm taking over the rest of the township.
It is, yeah. Yep, that's why these counts can be so important, and I'm not really sure what they did. I know they struggled with the census this past time and with the college campuses in particular, but.
Okay. I would be interested to know how far off we would be if we move that into Ward 2 versus if we move that into Ward 7.
Well, Jack, the other thing would be to, would you put that?
Oh, sure.
Can we see it for a
Sorry.
sec? Would be to flip that into Ward 2 and take, because that's now part of Ward 3. It's gray, right? Yeah. And take Ward 2 and run it straight down King of Prussia Road to Lancaster and get rid of Chamonix and Fenimore and all of that area. And that's a pretty populous area.
Yeah.
It might be an equal exchange. It
So,
would mean Ward 2 would be predominantly Villanova students.
yeah.
More than
Yeah.
50% Villanova students.
So it is for me a very high priority to get Villanova into 2 wards instead of 3. I will say that I have 2 objections to option C. The first is, it is a drastic change to the electorates of wards 1, 3, and 2. Like I was talking about greater Ward 1, this extends me all the way to the northeastern border of the township, and Ward 3 gets this weird growth on it that just extends, like it used to be all south of Lancaster Avenue, now Ward 3 is colonizing north of Lancaster Avenue. And the problem that creates is that you've got commissioners who are elected by one body of people, and they're now representing other people who never elected them, or they're not representing them. They're still trying to work for the people who elected them originally. We're going to have overlaps in I'm trying to service people who elected Commissioner Myers,
And Commissioner Myers. You would be my commissioner.
and I would be servicing Commissioner Myers. Yeah, I think it creates a problem. Option B, to my eye, does a better job of preserving the borders and minimizing that issue. The other issue that I have with it, though, to be straightforward, is I just don't think that the board should lose Commissioner Myers, which I don't think we gave you our addresses, so there's no reason that you should know that you've redistricted her out of her homes. I did say when this project started that I was going to view maps that districted commissioners out of their homes with a degree of suspicion, and the reality is the second ward elected Dr. Myers to be their commissioner, and it is hard to find people to do this job. It is not easy. When you find someone of the quality of Commissioner Myers, I would work very hard not to just throw her off by redistricting. In fact, she could just take over Ward 1. That'd be fine. So yeah, I would love to find if there were an option to get Villanova into 2 wards off of option B. And maybe what we could do, I know that we don't have another small group meeting planned, but maybe if you would be willing to spend the time, could you spend some time looking at that? And to the extent you're able to, also see if you can incorporate Barron's suggestions. And when you next meet with the Board of Commissioners, which will be our next group meeting, you could present options B and C, or whatever we end up recommending
Option
as
D.
this small group.
Yeah, D.
Yeah, and we'll have option D, which is sort of option B revised. I feel like I started with you gave us 3 maps, and now I'm asking you basically for 4, and we're supposed to be narrowing it down, but nonetheless.
Baron? Baron had something to say.
Barron's suggestions would I think overcomplicate. I mean, now we're asking you to actually just go back and redo.
Well, so, hang on, I can't read this far away. Hang on a second. So, we know it's like 1,300 people, right? 1,300 people. So if you take that away from Ward 3 Now you're down to like 3,300 people in that ward, which is far too low. And one of the other wards goes up more than that. And so to move that quantity of people, when I looked at it before, because I did try more options than the ones you all saw as I played around with this, I mean, you're moving almost entire voting precincts. Like the current Ward 3, for instance, like one voting precinct is like 1,300 people or something like that. And like one precinct in Ward 1, I think, has like 1,000 people in it maybe. So it's while it's a very small geographic area for Villanova because of the high concentration you have there in other areas, I mean, that's why I almost see in option C, all of almost, is it precinct 1, I think, Ward 2, precinct 1 moved because that equaled that many people. It's just a lot of people to move. And I can definitely go back and try again, but just so you all are aware in doing that, when I explore those options, it's going to create significant shifts elsewhere. So it's possible to do, but where do you want those shifts to occur? If you're going to move this quantity of people into like Ward 2, what are you going to take away from Ward 2 to, you know, make the population adjustment? Or if you add it to Ward 7, you're going to basically lose an entire precinct in Ward 7. And that's going to shift to 4, and then 4 is over.
Thanks.
And then 4 is overpopulated. So if you take this and add it to Ward 7, then almost this voting precinct here would move into 4, and now you have to take 1,300 people out of 4 and move them somewhere else, and you can only go up from there, if you will. So you could add them to 3, I suppose, possibly, depending on where they are, or maybe 6. And then it just keeps shifting, if you see how those changes go. Or if
Well,
you
that's
add
why
it here.
I was saying just shift between Ward 3 and Ward 2.
Ward
So you
3 and
just
2?
shift the little Villanova, proboscis, I'm calling it.
Yeah.
Up to Ward 2, and then you shift everything kind of west of King of Prussia Road. Use King of Prussia Road as your line.
So,
Between King of Prussia and Lancaster. Right now, it shifts over by Eastern and Fenimore.
so in option C, right, it took away that
Yeah.
little piece, and it shifted,
Right. So it's like that, yeah.
but so you're suggesting, but you don't like how it shifted here, you want it to shift differently? I'm just trying to make sure I understand what you all are
Could we,
wanting.
I don't love ordering à la carte like this, but could we just tweak map C so that Commissioner Myers stays in her ward?
Possibly, you'd have to let me know where she lives, but I could
I prefer you guess.
just pick a spot.
If you keep one on one side of King of Prussia Road and 2 on the other side of King of Prussia Road, you'll do it.
Okay, and we can maybe just talk a little afterwards. I don't have to put that on the,
Oh, yeah. Do you want to? Baron, why don't I give one of you the microphone and then you can.
Thank you. That working great. Just a couple comments, and actually, I
Sure.
don't have to use the pointer. Actually, it's more for the comments that were made here. Yes, the variance is a tough thing to deal with. Plus, you have the fact that you've got these blocks that are earlier shapes. You just can't push it a little over, get a few people. As Amanda said, you've got that one Villanova block there that is attached, and you can't get rid of it. One of the things I did try and do, Maggie, to your comment, I tried to see if Ward 2 could be just King of Prussia, the boundary, all the way down, but it picks up too many here, so I was trying to see if there's a way to eat into it, because if you do it all the way down like you're talking, and then it picks up what it needs to for Villanova, that's too many. It's kind of like the Villanova problem. There's too many in there. And the trouble is it's very hard to kind of eat into that a little, even if you wanted to cross like Ward 3 over or Ward 1 over, because a lot of those census blocks go the full length from the township border to that. So you can't, you start to create non-contiguous ones. I was working, so I looked at that. I'm not sure that's possible. I was looking at another one where Ward 2 crept over here to pick up where your resident would be, and then there would still be some Ward 1 there, because again, when I was looking at the pure King of Prussia one, it didn't look like it was going to work out based upon the numbers, because there was no way to take anything else from Ward 2 based upon the blocks. But there might be a way with that crook. I was seeing if Ward 4 could take a little more than I'd already proposed this, the east of the Blue Route, and Ward 4 might be a few residents, not student housing, but there's a few residence streets there that it might be able to pick up. I was close, but I only started doing that last night after speaking with Jack after the meeting last night. So, have pity on Amanda, because when you're dealing with moving these blocks and then you've got to deal with the blocks as they live, and you've got that plus or minus 5%, that's why I went to the spreadsheet, because it gets really mind-boggling after a while. So, but I would, Jack, per your comment, yes, when I did my tweaks with C, that's the next thing I was looking at to see, could we remedy that? And I haven't given up on that, but I just didn't have enough time to work on it. But it's not an easy nut to crack on that one. So which one are you going to move?
I am two for different. Well, then what I'm going to request is if you could, in some place where we're not being publicly televised, tell Amanda your address. If Amanda, you could take another crack at option B to get Villanova into 2 wards instead of 3, and C to get Commissioner Myers back into the 2nd ward without violating any of the rules of the game that we've already established. I'd suggest that we present those 2 options to the Board of Commissioners. You have a thought? Did Barron steal my microphone? No. Oh, there we go.
Just a quick comment. I understand the reluctance to have any change as to how someone voted, who they're represented by. It would be for a certain number of years before that would change, but some of the principles of fair redistricting do involve independent commissions for the specific reasons, because lawmakers drawing their own district has some bias. And I'm not quite sure that keeping the lawmaker in their district is supposed to be considered that heavily. And that's independently of my opinion of who should be where. I just want to raise that issue that I think it kind of is of concern. Thank you.
I totally understand that, and I'm the person who said it.
I know.
If I, Commissioner Myers, Commissioner Abel said, I want to draw this district so that I can be reelected, I would absolutely share your concern. The issue here is not, for me anyway, redrawing the district so that anyone is more electable. Commissioner Myers may choose not to run again. She may end up being voted out of office if she does. I hope not, but it's a possibility. I just want to make sure that the people who elected her have the chance to do so again if she makes the decision to run. And I think that it's unfair to zone her out of her district, they having elected her already. There's also nothing that I've seen that suggests that any of the districts as they stand right now are really wildly unfair. There is no Donald Duck kicking Goofy or whatever it is. And all of the districts, whether we go with option A, B, or C, the political makeup of the districts do not materially change. I think the largest swing that I saw was 3 percentage points, and that does not change the majority in any of the districts. So what you're saying makes perfect sense to me. I don't think it's crazy. I'm also personally just not willing to show Dr. Myers the doors in this case. One other question that I have for the Board of Commissioners. We need to make a recommendation, I think, as to when this would go into effect. My recommendation would be that it not go into effect for the 2023 cycle, because for many of the reasons that you, ma'am, just raised, I think it's a little unseemly if the, are you running this next cycle? No, it's me. I think it's unseemly if I pick my wards and then the Board of Commissioners picks their wards. We'll have 5 people running in the next election. I think it would be a mistake for us to say we'll do that in December and then we'll start running in January on the new ward. So I'm going to suggest this goes into effect in 2024, but I'm open to hearing something else from the group.
So I'm
So if we-
assuming that oh, I'm sorry, Jake.
No,
that-
please go ahead.
That it has to be the same for both the primary and the general election. Okay, so you can't split in the middle of the year.
I don't think so. It'd be pretty confusing.
It would be very confusing.
Yeah, well, it'll be confusing regardless if we held off to 2024, because we've been in the situation, I think that you alluded to earlier, where you could have a commissioner representing a ward that he or she may not be representing the year after. So, what's that?
So 5?
Or, yeah, so why wouldn't we do it sooner rather than later? So the commissioners that are elected or are representing their ward and not, you know, if I was in 6 and then we took away that portion of West Wayne, are they coming to me for questions? Are they coming to the 3rd Ward Commissioner for questions?
I think that makes a lot of sense. I think number one, the point you raised means that we should do this in an odd year, whether that's 3 or 5. The objection that I have to doing it in 3 is that we have 5 races on a 7-person board. And I just don't like the appearance of, the sitting board is going to whack up the township, and then immediately we'll have a supermajority rerun for office based on the districts that we've carved up. None of this really changes the political makeup, so it doesn't really make a difference, but it has the appearance of gerrymandering, which I don't love.
It could be 6 if you pick a seat. It would be 6 people running. If you picked C, it would actually be 6 people running, not 5.
Why would there be 6 people?
Because someone would have to run for,
You'd be able to
No, you
serve out
your
your
term.
term.
not living in my ward?
Yeah.
Yep.
Oh.
You thought you were getting out of this, no? No. Okay, I mean, I'm amenable to 3 if you guys want to recommend it. I'm amenable to 5.
My preference would be it would go into effect for 2023.
Okay.
I would have picked that before, as soon as possible is what I would have picked generally. But I wasn't really thinking about how many people were voting.
Okay, well, it sounds like the recommendation is we do it in 2023. We'll see what the board says.
So Jack, can we just kind of walk through the next steps on
Yes.
on what, like, when are we anticipating a revised map? And then what would happen after that? Would it go immediately to the full board, or would we have another crack at this for questions? Because we talked about 3 subcommittee meetings, this being the 3rd. Are we going to have a 4th?
I don't think so. We've hired Amanda for a limited number of sessions. We all have a limited number of evenings.
Yep.
I also, as much as it sounds like the consensus here is that we're going to do this in 2023, I'm very reluctant to have the Board of Commissioners run over into 2023 when we vote, so we do have a deadline to get this done. My thought is, Amanda, you have on your calendar, I hope, the Board of Commissioners meeting where we're next presenting this. If you could get either revised proposals to this small group, which we can share with the board, sufficiently in advance of that meeting that everybody will be able to review the proposals. Our board agendas go out the Wednesday before the proposal, before the meeting. You could then, at that meeting, present, the board will, or this group will recommend that we're going to be doing 2023.
And if we have limited number of opportunities to pass this, should we have the suggested precinct lines as well? Like, how quickly can we turn those around? Because you would want those. I don't know that those are required right away, but they would definitely need to be in place before, early 2023, because we'd have to identify polling places and get that information out to neighbors.
So I'm not sure that it's fair to ask Amanda to start drawing precinct lines if we haven't whittled down a map yet, because then we're going to have like 15 different options. And we were supposed to come to the Board of Commissioners with one. So why don't we ask the Board of Commissioners to pick a map, and then if it's the pleasure of the board, we can ask Amanda to come back and help us with precinct lines? Is there anything else before we do a final public comment?
One quick question, just in thinking about precincts. I noticed that the polling places are not always physically within the precinct, and that's fine and standard, and I know, Jake, you've got some that aren't.
Yeah, I think it's allowed. I don't think it's ideal.
Right. I mean, it certainly isn't ideal, being able to certainly to walk to the polling place, but we have some movement as to where, as Barron was saying, we could move to Wayne Elementary from the township or whatever the specifics were. Okay.
Yeah, Amanda, do you know much about criteria for polling places? Like, is that an appropriate question for you?
What do you mean by criteria for polling
Like,
places?
could we recommend one location for 2 precincts?
There are polling like, I'll say where I go vote, there are 2 different precincts that are voting there at the
Okay.
same location. I
Right.
mean, they're in separate rooms, but they're
Yeah.
using the same
So if there's 2 wings of a building.
building, yes.
Okay, that's helpful, thank you.
So there's still 2 like election setups, if you will. They're just in the same space.
We do that in the first ward. Or we have done that in the first ward. Great. Public comment?
Thank you, and I'll be brief because I know Jack keeps these meetings to an hour, and we're approaching that very quickly. Couple reiterations, comment. Yes, when someone gets redistricted out, they serve the remainder of their term regardless. So if you can, even if Jack runs again and gets elected, maybe you can kick him out after 2 years, and then you can run in a special election. I agree with Jake. The sooner you get this implemented, the better, because otherwise you are going to elect somebody that then they're going to be switched out, because you never know where the candidates are going to come from next year. And speaking of which, it should only be 4 in November, because Lisa will be the primary, and that will be the election. It'll just be the special election at the primary time. And that's obviously another reason, although I'm kind of doubting, since Ward 4 is not getting tremendously changed, that is going to be an issue with voting somebody in like that, even if they're not changed by that time. Thank you.
Any final public comment? 2 minutes early. Thank you all.